Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 9 of Vengeance of the Moon Knight, written by Jed MacKay. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now this issue opens with a small flashback of Mark asking Khonshu for a favor, but unfortunately, that was a no-go, because back at that present moment, Khonshu was imprisoned in Asgard. But anyway, the favor Mark wanted was to know who the Defender, the Embracer, the Traveler, and the Pathfinder were. Now in order to obtain that information, Khonshu tells our hero that it would come with a price. This was no surprise to Mark, because there always is. So with that out there, we then fast forward to the now, and when we get there, we see Moon Knight walking through the streets at night talking to himself saying, "No, not now, for he has business to attend to, business that was long overdue." And as he was saying that, he was far from alone, because Reese told him to stop freaking her out, because he was talking to himself. Now funny enough, Mark replied by saying, he likes when people are a little scared of him, because it helps keep people from coming to him for every little thing. Besides, Mark claims that he is keeping people safe by dealing with things that other people can't deal with themselves. Which was a funny way to word what he was really doing, because Reese states that they all know he went out to fix Miss Banerjee's sink the other day. Or at least, that was what they thought, because even at this moment, Mark was having a conversation with Khonshu. And during this conversation, Khonshu states, she doesn't know, does she? For she doesn't know that Mark petitioned his loving father for aid in order to save Reese's life. Which, Khonshu kindly granted him. For Khonshu found a path for Mark to get to his temple, so he and his warwoman could take out the Zodiac and his creatures as the price for saving Reese. Following that, we jump forward to Mark and Hunter's Moon running across the rooftop. And as they ran, Mark asked his brother to tell him everything about the impostor that pretended to be him. To which, Hunter's Moon told him he heard that he was an acquaintance of his by the name of Maximilian Coleridge, aka the Shroud. And then he went on to say, the Shroud went wild on the streets, dressed in a stolen symbol. And then he continues to say that Mark been a fist of Khonshu since his first death, so he has the right to be the vestments they both wear, regardless of what he had done to them. Following that, Mark came to a stop and asked his brother, where did he leave him? To which, Hunter's Moon states he was laying in the old Mount building, the same place where Mark died. Or at least, that is where they fought him and made him see the errors of his ways. And then he exploded into a dark force geyser that led to the Blood Hunt event. So with the information given, Hunter's Moon then went on to ask Mark what all this was about. To which he replied by saying, he owes Khonshu a life, and Khonshu wants this Moon Knight dead as payment for his help with the Zodiac thing. Khonshu wants the Shroud dead in exchange for Reese's life. And since Khonshu is free now, if Mark reneges on his debt, then Reese would no longer be safe. So with that broken down, Hunter's Moon tells his brother that their father is a jealous god and a false fist is a grave offense to his name. Following that, Mark descended from the rooftop and landed before the Shroud and called him Moon Knight. Now as soon as the Shroud heard Mark's voice, he instantly knew who he was and admitted that he did wrong and made a mistake. But due to Khonshu's request, all Mark could say was to put the mask on. Now this was something the Shroud didn't understand, but that wasn't Mark's problem, because when he took his name, the Shroud didn't just offend his friends. For he also offended a god, and gods are only satiated by blood. But no matter what Mark said, the Shroud continued to say he gave up the suit and understood he did wrong. But it didn't matter, because one way or another a Moon Knight would die tonight, so the Shroud had no choice but to put on the impostor's mask and rush into battle. With the fight on, Mark stated that the Shroud was a part of the cult of Kali, and as a member, what would they have done to a person who their god was pissed off with? So as the battle continued on, the Shroud cried out and said, if Mark is no better than the cult of Kali, then maybe he didn't deserve to be Moon Knight. And let's just say, Mark was beating the heck out of him, and right when he had him against the ropes, Moon Knight went on to say, you went all out on Hunter's Moon and Tiger the last time he fought them. So why is he currently holding back against him? With anger in his voice, he told the Shroud this has to look real because he is fighting for his life. And at that moment, the Shroud released his dark force energy and started to get serious. So with the real battle about to begin, Mark stated that the dark force powers are not doing so well after the whole Blood Hunt experience. Now to that, the Shroud did admit that it's been a difficult time, but he had trained for longer than he had. And on the next page, we see both the Shroud and the Moon Knight going toe-to-toe and hand-to-hand. and a ferocious exchange of blows. As predicted, Mark came out on top and wrapped his hands around his throat and choked the life out of his body until his hands fell limp under the gaze of the moon and his brother. Now, after Mark sat in the rain for an extended amount of time, we transferred over to the bar with no name. And to everyone's surprise, Mark walked into the bar and strolled by everyone within and said, "Hello, I have been gone for a while, but I am back. Because I always come back, for the Moon Knight could never be killed." So to double down on his statement, Mark stated the guy who had been running around using his name can't say the same, so their understanding still stands, and that is for everyone to stay out of his territory. And as a sign of his seriousness, Mark nailed the pretender's suit to the wall so all could see as he turned to walk away. And as he left, no one dared to stop him. Following that, we jump back over to the midnight mission, with the Shroud sitting down and beaten all the way up. And as he sat there, Mark told Hunter's Moon and the Shroud that the false Moon Knight had to be killed, so in order to do that, Mark made the Shroud's heart stop beating. And once he was dead, Mark brought his body back to Dr. Bad so she could defibrillate him and bring him back to life again. Now to this statement, Hunter's Moon stated that Mark is playing a dangerous game. But see, dangerous games are the only games worth playing, and as a prize, the Shroud gets to live even after a god calls for his death. Now with that explained, Mark tells the Shroud that he gave his life back so that he could get some help and do the work. So with that victory in hand, Khonshu confronted Mark and asked if he thought he was clever. To which Mark stated he had never been clever, but he had always been obstinate, for he won't murder for him and there is nothing Khonshu could do to make him. Following that, Khonshu reminded Mark that he owes him a life, but see, Mark did give him one, for the false Moon Knight is dead and never to return. Now this pissed Khonshu off, because this was not what he wanted. But Mark was never concerned with what he wanted, and anyway, a sacrifice to a god is always symbolic, and the impostor's skin hangs pinned in a place of those who hold him, and therefore Khonshu in terror. So in a way, Mark had satisfied Khonshu's demands and had paid his debt. And just in case Khonshu was planning on threatening Reese or any of Mark's midnight missions again, Mark wants him to think about his own debt to them, because he owes them his freedom. So in the end, a Moon Knight is dead, so long live the Moon Knight, Mark Spector. And with that said, this issue of Moon Knight comes to an end, and the next issue of Moon Knight will pick up in the Fist of Khonshu issue 1. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.